The budget challenges were there when we took office last year, and everybody knew this coming in. Legislature understood it. The prior appropriations in the previous session had been $6 billion. Through a lot of teamwork, we balanced a budget together and did that with bringing spending down to $4.3 billion, which is a historic shift that no legislature's ever had to really drive through in dollar amount. From a percentage basis, it's the hardest piece of work that's been done since the Great Depression in responding to that. And we also were able to shrink government but still maintain services. So we got 327 less full-time equivalents. That does not count higher education, and 642 fewer budgeted employees going into this thing, but still trying to work smarter and to keep delivering great services. And we funded virtually all the priorities that we chose to do, including fully funding K through 12. But one of the things in our state, if we don't diversify the economy, we end up being very dependent on things we can't control, particularly commodity prices, because ag and energy, both being our biggest industries and both being commodity related. If we take a look at what we've been through in the last 10 years, just take a look at the price of corn, and you can see that there was a time when corn prices were very high, and perhaps which might be the tendency. They get high and you think they're going to stay high forever, but you can see the precipitous drop that they went through, and then they've stayed low. And this puts pressure on our ag communities and ag producers and everybody in the system, and it also puts pressure on the state because of the revenues that we produce. From an energy standpoint, the same thing. Energy prices are volatile. There's lots of competition. We have an approach in our state which is all of the above. So we're supporting oil and gas, we're supporting coal, we're supporting wind. Oil and gas, obviously, a lot of that's going towards transportation fuels with coal and with the wind. That's to power our grid, and if we didn't have the coal industry we would have today, we do have some of the lowest electric rates in the country, some of the most reliable electricity in the country because of the base load that we get provided by coal. And as the renewable continues to grow and grow at a low variable cost, those dynamics put pressure on the economics between those two, and we have to continue to sort that out as we go forward. But from a revenue standpoint to the state, we are very dependent on revenue that comes from the oil and gas industry. And as you can see again here, we had a huge drop from June of 14 to January of 16, where we had about a 70% drop in the price of oil, and that makes very difficult for any organization when you got this kind of volatility on the revenue side to figure out how you're going to do your spending. The good news is that oil production is back up. As you can see on the prior page, as oil prices have come up, production is starting to climb up. It's very likely in the next few months we'll break our previous record high in terms of barrels of oil produced per day. And that is absolutely positively due to the fact that this industry has figured out through technology and entrepreneurship to figure out a way to get their break-even costs down. Because today, if we're say roughly at $60 a barrel, we've got people that are investing and making money. 4 or 5 years ago, they needed to have prices at 80 or 90 to make money. So when we're doing things that are smart, like drilling more wells on a pad, we're having less surface impacts, and we're providing better economics in terms of how we do this. But some of the challenges we have here related to workforce, there'd be more activity going on in our state if we could fill the jobs. And then we also, as we produce more oil, we also produce more gas. And if we produce more gas, we have to do more gas capture, which means infrastructure, which means gas lines, which means working both at the state level and at the federal level. Because of the federal lands or tribal lands in our state, we've got some burdensome federal regulations to make sure we're doing the gas capture to make sure that we're capturing all the gas that we want to capture as we go forward. But with this oil revenue being highly variable, again, this is the challenge that the legislature was facing. There was almost $6 billion in oil revenue in 13 and 15. That dropped in half in 15, 17. We're projected to be about the same in this thing, but we're having to deal with about half the revenue that came in from this very important source. The other thing which made forecasting tricky was we had a huge run-up in sales tax collections during the time that the boom was going on. And if you take a look from just in 2 bienniums, from 07-09 to 11-13, it doubled. From 09 to 013, it doubled. You know, you might say, hey, wow, that trend is just going to keep on going. But when oil activity dropped and oil prices dropped, sales tax revenues followed to a lower level, and again, creating great challenges for us from a forecasting standpoint. And as I said earlier, you know, through great teamwork with the legislature, able to reduce general fund appropriations from $6 billion down to 4.3 and keep driving ahead on all the important initiatives. The good news and the bad news of how we got that done was the good news is that prior legislatures had built up some really significant reserves across different funds: tax relief fund, foundation aid, which especially goes to schools, budget stabilization, which is meant for budget fluctuation, strategic investment and improvement fund, and the general fund ending balance, kind of like leaving money in your checking account. Think of that last column as that. So money tucked away in a bunch of places. When the revenues dropped, we had a period of time when revenues were less than what we were spending, and we were able to keep those government services rolling with our savings account or reserve fund balances. But if you can see where we are in the gray is where we are projected to end in 2019. Our balances are going to be substantially lower. In some cases, they were run almost down to zero and then back up again. So we're kind of working our way back out of this situation. The risk is not, we're not risk-free. And so again, more work ahead for the legislature from an appropriating standpoint to try to make sure that we're matching our expenses with our revenues at a time when we've got lower revenues and we've got depleted balances. One other really great thing that all of you, if you were of an age, if you were voting at that time, was the creation of the Legacy Fund. And the Legacy Fund takes 30% of the total revenue derived from oil and gas production and puts it away into a fund for the future. It was through 2016, that money just grew, and it was created by a vote of the people, put on the ballot by the legislature through a bipartisan resolution, and that money just grew. Last year, for the first time, there was ability to access the interest and income off of it, and that little orange piece down there was $200 million that came from that we were able to use to help, that went towards funding that $4.3 million. It'll continue to grow through 2018 and into 2019 as the earnings go in there. But I would just say again, I think I'll stake out my position on this, is I don't think we should be tapping the principal. And when we come to spending the interest and earnings, I would like us to think really creatively about how we can use those dollars to actually transform what we're doing, not just fund basic, the basic services and operations of government. And so we may have to use this again to get us through this period of time where we're just using it to fund government, but we certainly, in all the young people that are here, in your lifetime, there's going to be an opportunity to use the Legacy Fund earnings for something that is really transformative. Part of the challenge I have to everybody in the state is to keep the ideas coming about what would really be impactful, because it's very special that North Dakota has this and has this as a potential tool for the future. Even in spite of cutting down from the 6 to the 4.3, the legislature, again, very supportive and very strategic on spending money on infrastructure. And now these numbers are way down from what we were spending during the boom when we were trying to catch up. But worth noting that the state government still continues to be a huge economic stimulus in itself in terms of building new roads, water projects, whether those flood or water supply, and then of course airports in particular, building the new regional airport at Williston. A lot of money being spent. You add all this, up, it's over $1.3, $1.4 billion being spent in this biennium on infrastructure by the state government. So we continue to invest in ourselves and in the future.